Hello, this is some old guy in Hawaii, and today we are going to talk about a number of things regarding the upcoming hunt. We're going to talk about actual numbers of items and points and how these things are distributed, how we can use them to gauge our progress. We're going to take a look at the time and effort it takes to farm some items, which is not always obvious, the problems that come with that and how to get around them. And finally, we're going to talk about efficiency and endgame. And while there will be some tables and numbers to show, there will be very little appropriate accompanying gameplay footage because I want to get this out ASAP. So most of this will just be my talking face. Sorry about that. So numbers. This hunt contains 370 items, 941 total points. That's one more item than the previous BO3 hunt. The Becca was removed as it is not an actual drop. We can still get it by completing all of Hammerlock's legendary hunt targets, each of which has their own drop. We just can't claim it for anything. Meanwhile, the TNTina was added to the Guardian Takedown, and the Tidal Wave was split off from the rest of the TK's Wave shotguns. We'll need to farm Dump Truck a bit longer to get the Tidal Wave and any of the other Wave shotguns. Now, my suggested strategy of farming hunt loot wherever we find it, vice pushing to finish the story and get to max level, can leave some unsure of their progress. How do we know how we're doing day to day, hour to hour? Well, since the hunt happens over 7 days, basic math says we need to grab, on average, 53 items or score 135 points per day to get everything. And you can break that down hour by hour if you like, depending on how much time you plan to play and stream daily. Per the rules, we are limited to 14 total hours per day. We may want to plan for fewer drops or points on day one, and more on subsequent days. Day one tends to go slower with everyone getting used to streaming and using spreadsheets and making clips and claiming items and dealing with chat. Okay. Now, looking at just these raw numbers, however, doesn't tell the whole story. The majority of items involve a quick farm of a few or a single enemy. There are, however, long stretches of the main story where we are moving from place to place but not fighting anyone with a hunt drop. And additionally, some of the content just takes longer to get to and or to farm. Of the 370 items, 14 items are worth 1 point each, 296 are worth 2 points each. These 310 items together account for almost 84% of all items. They also account for 606 points, almost 2/3 of the maximum 941 points. The majority of these are either part of the main story or a DLC main story or quick farms that can be done along the way. But a few are mayhem locked, as mentioned in the spreadsheet video, and a few others also include lengthy side missions like the Anointed Alpha, Private Beans, Aista, Lagrimar, to name a few. These also include items from the Cartel and Bloody Harvest seasonal events. Their final bosses, Joey and Captain Haunt, each require gathering resources and then running through an entire map to farm them at the end for their specific drops, not quick farms. 5 are also Circle of Slaughter drops. Every slaughter has 5 long waves. And finally, 24 of these are Arms Race exclusives, which I will talk about in a little bit. Okay. Then we have 53 items, 40%, that are worth 5 points each and account for 265 total points, 28%, over a quarter of the max possible score. Now, at 5 points each, I would expect a lot of this to take more effort, which is true for the vast majority of items. This includes all higher level Mayhem locked items, Proving Grounds, 2 Circles of Slaughter, and items from both takedowns and the raid boss. Proving Grounds all have 3 maps that each need to be cleared in sequence, followed by a boss fight. Already mentioned Circle of Slaughter waves. Each takedown can take 20 to 30 minutes or more, depending on your build and expertise. Even the raid boss, by its very nature, can take longer to farm than most other sources. On the plus side, none of the Mayhem locked takedown items need to be farmed from takedowns. They all have faster single sources. The last 7 items at 10 points each are Guardian Takedown exclusives. Gotta run the whole takedown to get a shot at them. The good news is that none of them require Mayhem. Now, as far as those numbers go, one takeaway from all this is that in general, our hunt point total is a better indicator of progress than number of items. In general, the higher the point value, the more time and effort an item would take to acquire, and we should plan accordingly. But it's also obvious that points don't always tell the real tale, given the long effort farming and mayhem locked items. Okay. With that in mind, I have added another column to the spreadsheet, this one down here. I will do another video just on this, but since we are here, this column is WTD for weighted. Sorting on this column puts everything in roughly in order as we encounter it, like the location code column, but moves mayhem locked content to the end. This means that everything up to Tyrene the Destroyer right about here can be farmed as we go. Everything at the end requires finishing the story and turning on Mayhem mode. And everything between can be done at almost any time, mainly DLC after reaching Sanctuary. Okay, those are the numbers. But before we talk about efficiency and endgame, we really need to talk about Arms Race, okay? Because Arms Race is deceptively, or can be deceptively, time sapping. Arms Race contains 24 items, each of which have an increased chance to drop from chests in specific rooms throughout Stormlight. All 24 are also considered world drops, meaning we don't need them to spawn in those specific room chests to claim them. If they drop from anyone in the arena at any time, it's legal. And then there's Boss Harker at the end, who can also drop all of them and always drops at least one or more items from the list. On the face of it, this looks really encouraging, but there are a couple of issues. One, getting to any of the outlying rooms is usually difficult given the shrinking murder cane. If we target one of these, we need to be on our toes and not stop to fight anyone extra on the way if we can help it. But even then, getting there in time can be problematic, and if we're late, that part of the run is kind of wasted. Two, even if we beeline to a room, any room, not just the outliers, and then hit Harker, one run can take 15 minutes or more. Okay, longer if we try and hit more than one treasure room. Compared to most of the farms in the game, this is a long time between repeats. Three, diminishing returns. The very nature of the source, the entire arena with a large pool of 24 items, means that the more items we acquire, the harder it gets to acquire the remaining items, because the more likely it becomes that we see things we already have. And four, Vault Hunter specific drops. The game weights anointments and, more importantly, Arms Race specific class mod drops toward whatever Vault Hunter we are playing at the time. Moze is more likely to see Moze class mods, and anointments, Zane will see more Zane class mods, etc. I mentioned falling 2 items short during my last BL3 hunt. This is why. I spent the last day about 8 hours trying to get class mods for Zane, Amar, and Flak in Arms Race. I was playing Moze. I got 1. 8 hours for 1 item out of 3. Okay, so a couple of tips for dealing with all of these issues. 1, have an objective every run. We pick a room, I'd start with the harder outliers, and we stick with it run after run till we get what we want, either from that room or as a world drop. Okay, a secondary objective further in is fine, whether we make it to the minimum or not, but it's not mandatory. We can have one in mind, but we don't stress we don't get to it. We just go to Harker. Okay, 2, always farm Harker. Diminishing returns aside, he is the best source for any drop, given that the fight does not take very long. He's guaranteed to drop something. 3, don't sweat the deaths. We will die, but it doesn't cost us anything. As long as we see an item card on stream, we can claim it. We don't need to extract it. And 4, co-op, run Arms Race with friends, preferably with each one running a different Vault Hunter. This not only increases the chances of anything dropping, because what drops for one can be counted by all, it reduces, or if running 4 different Vault Hunters, it eliminates the problem I had of class mod drops weighted toward a specific Vault Hunter. Okay. 4.1, a little extra. Not crazy about co-op, too much to coordinate. We don't really have to run Arms Race co-op to get everything quickly and efficiently. Just the class mods for the Vault Hunter we are not playing. Okay. Getting 3 other players to just run co-op only focused on the class mods is still a huge time saver, especially given that the chests that spawn those items are all ones furthest from the center. 4 people running until all 4 comms drop, then go back to solo. Odds are that will happen from random world drops in Harker before we get them from the 4 separate rooms. Okay. Per the rules, all co-op players need to be within 3 levels of the host player, so some coordination and playing will be required. But trust me when I tell you, it will save all of you a lot of time and effort. Okay, last topic, efficiency and endgame. I mentioned the word efficiency a lot in the strategy video. A key aspect to efficient hunt farming is to not repeat content unless necessary. That's why I suggest farming one source for all its items at one time, so we never have to come back. That's the point of the strategy. That's the point of the spreadsheet. Mayhem locked items aside, there are 2 exceptions to the don't repeat content rule, or rather 1 exception with 2 applications. First, any rare spawn drop that makes farming and combat in general decidedly easier is worth the extra time. Items like the Hellwalker shotgun or stopgap shield can be immensely powerful during a normal playthrough, carrying us 10 levels or more. And when they fall off, it's well worth the effort to go back and farm on level ones. Okay, after we complete the Athenas map in the story and are joined by Maya and Ava, we can obtain Ava's murder mystery missions on Sanctuary. Farming the first mission boss, Sumo, will get us a Revolter shield. Farming the third mission boss, Beef Pliskin, will get us a Free Radical pistol, arguably the most powerful weapon in the game. Usually only these, with periodic refarms for more on-level examples, will carry any decent player through the entire story. Okay, so that's one example where it's okay to repeat content. The other example is endgame. Okay, the toughest content in the game, with takedowns, raid boss, etc., require a decent endgame build. Anyone seriously competing in the hunt should have an endgame build in mind and work towards it. And that may mean repeating some content, because an endgame build normally requires high, if not max level gear. Any gear that is part of our endgame build will probably need to be farmed at level 72, even if we've already claimed an example for the hunt. Okay, repeating content in this instance is expected. One caveat: whatever endgame build we shoot for, it must be a build that works without perfect gear. We do not have time to farm a perfect triple roll revolter or some other max damage gun. Okay, pick a build that works with any example of a piece of gear, not one that requires god rolls. We may opt to spend extra time to get better skill points or specific skill point boost on a class mod or a particular passive on an artifact. Just be mindful that every specific requirement we say we need on an item lowers the probability of getting it and increases the likely farm time. Okay, and that's it. Be sure to check out the strategy and spreadsheet videos if you haven't already. I have at least one or two more in the works, including one on vehicles you may find helpful. Remember, the hunt is a charity event to raise money for a worthy cause, and remember to have fun doing it. You know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe to see more. Stay safe. Thanks for watching.